The ancestry tuning your inner voice. Play the
Good evening. It's with great pleasure that I welcome you to the 21st virtual gathering of the Surrey Muse for Friday, January 28th, 2022. This gathering features the work of author Hannah Macready, poet Ellie, Kraljii, Gardiner, performer RC Weslowski, and our open mic will be beginning with the work of J.G.Chayko. My name is Jovian Radheshwar. Our art for the evening is this beautiful psychedelic elephant produced by L.Roche, exclusive for this event, Surrey Muse's 21st virtual gathering. The Surrey Muse is a gathering or a virtual gathering that takes place on the unceded Coast Salish territories of the Semi-Amu, Katsi, Kwikwetlan, Kwantlen, Kakayed, Tsawwassen, Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, whose existence precedes that of the nation-state, the so-called nation-state of Canada. Welcome. Tonight's featured author is Hannah Macready. Hannah Macready is a writer and editor working in the areas of copywriting, editing, and digital marketing. Her fiction and nonfiction has been published in Canada, the UK, and the United States. Hannah completed her undergraduate studies with honors at the University of Wales, Trinity St. David in 2018. In 2017, she received the Maurice Hodgson Award for Creative Distinction. Hannah is the magazine assistant at Event Magazine, for which she creates regular web content. Originating from the United States, Hannah now resides in Vancouver. Please welcome everybody, tonight's author, Hannah Macready.
In the summer, there are cherry trees that bend their branches past guarded yards and sway over the heads of passing neighborhood children. The hands that can reach the branches help the ones that cannot. Red juice weeps from mouths and gourd pits scatter the ground. Occasionally, the tree's owners will shout. The children kick their heels at the ground, running home, panting, afraid. We have no dining room, and so each night dinner sits on pottery plates amongst piles of newspapers, bills, and scholastic book orders that have been shoved unlovingly across the milk crate table that stands in front of the TV set. I don't yet understand The Simpsons or how tears can spring up from anything other than the sight of mashed potatoes. But I sit, fixed, eyes squinting deeper into the television screen as the kitchen behind me reverberates. There's shouting, a cup dropped too heavily, the occasional breaking of glass. Father will open and close the refrigerator or rustle the dishes that sit inside of the sink to try and drown out the noise. The topic of the year is bank accounts. My hands are the size of mandarin oranges, and the cherries that I pick on the way home stain my pockets burgundy. Mother is 26 and hates being called mother. Father is 33. They do not share the same bank account. Cash is left on the fridge each morning at dawn, pushed down by my alphabet magnets. The list is submitted every night after dinner, with which Father calculates the next day's budget. While he adds up the price of eggs and divides the weekly dinner plan, Mother paints small red pots that she has formed from Colorado clay. She will glance up at me and wrinkle her nose, or push her large lips into a fish mouth until I giggle. Father does not join in on these games. He only continues to rub the wrinkles out of his brow until we turn off the lights. When I find her on the lawn, she begins to cry harder. There's blood running from her wrists, and when I touch them, the cherry juice from my hands blends into deeper shades of velvet and brick. I run inside, but Father is absent, not sat beside the television smoking, not chopping garlic too slowly in the kitchen. It is Friday afternoon, and he won't be home for supper, perhaps even tomorrow's breakfast. So I hurry next door and bang on the cracked frame of the house that has attached itself to ours, which hides a 90-year-old woman who smells like newspaper. She answers, sees my hands, draws a rope-like wrist to her face, and hurries to grab the phone. On the day of my birth, my mother was not there. She says that she flew up into the sky and plucked me out of the clouds and then let me softly fall to earth as she sang to the angels. She tells me the story each year on my birthday while we sit next to the fireplace and pick slivers out of the stacked wood. Each birthday except for my 7th. On that day, she cried for 10 hours, and I played outside in rain puddles while I heard Father shout. Later, we ate dinner apart, her shoved amongst blankets in her room, baring her face to muffle her curses. Father did not speak to me, only occasionally rustled my hair. After I was meant to be in bed, I stole out to the kitchen in search of a glass of milk. I found Mother there, holding a large knife to her chest, staring at the light that flickered after I hit the switch. Our eyes met, and she screamed. Not at me, but past me, through the doors and down the street. I turned the light off and returned to my room, leaving her alone in the darkness. After the incident in the yard, I know that the insides of our house are full of sickness, and I refrain from touching the doorknobs when I enter each room. I can see the sickness crawling over the house, slipping its black body over the walls and leaving burn holes on any surface it rests. The kitchen is embers. My parents' room is dust. Mother stays on the couch for days. I can hear her breathing, but she is rarely awake. When she does open her eyes, they are red like cherries, like the blood that still stains the front yard. I can't see Mother inside of them, but I still call her by her name. Father has always called her Laura, but hearing him speak the short word makes my shoulders shake. I begin to bring Mother presents as she sleeps, flowers and stones from the neighborhood, small bits of colored plastic, and leaves from the cherry trees that line our street. I whisper to the gifts, memories of love scenes and arms linking arms in spring. Then I place them in the folds of her blankets, tuck them into the backs of her knees, and will them not to fall out or give up. A week goes by without much change. Mother has lifted herself from her horizontal position into a lump of wool and quilt on the couch. She speaks to me now, quietly and only in the mornings, before her eyes fully open to the light. The old woman from next door has come by many times. I have heard her telling Father that Mother needs a hospital, but Father says he believes in our family, that we know ourselves best, and that Laura, I shake, has done all of this before. At night, I dream of black flames that twist out of our windows and burn down every tree on the block. The cherries stay red in the fire, and Mother's blood is pouring out from the yard. I can't see Father, but I can feel him beside me, stroking his arms, watching the house fall into the night. Awake, I'm playing at the end of our street. There are children throwing rocks down the alley, watching them bounce down the hill and into the grass. A tall boy begins to roll a large rock out of a neighboring garden. I can see a group of ducklings following their mother down the alley, but I say nothing. The boy throws the rock and the ducklings scatter, but one is pinned against the fence and I hear it crush with a gritty sound. Noise is everywhere, laughter from the children and a deep buzz from the remaining ducks who have taken cover in long grass. I finger the cherry pit in my hand and watch the skin of my fingers turn new shades of red. I'm walking home before the last rock is thrown. Are there any more children in the clouds? I ask Mother while she sits, smoldering in the folds of her blankets. She lifts her head and gives me one eye. I wouldn't mind a sister. I can see Father in the reflection of her eyes, standing with his square legs and large hands. I back myself away from the couch, sliding across the floor by the back of my pants. When I hit Father's leg, I hold on to him, lightly, without the use of my nails. He rustles my hair, but does not speak. Thank you.
Tonight's featured poet is Elee Kraljii Gardiner, who is an author, a poet, and a mentor. In 2019, while an MFA student at the Institute of American Indian Arts, she published Against Death, 35 Essays on Living. That was a finalist for the Montaigne Medal and the Hoffer Grand Prize in the United States. Her first book of poems, Serpentine Loop, considers gender and physicality through the idea of ice, and it was nominated for the 2017 Raymond Schuster Award. Her second book, the long poem memoir Trauma Head, won the Cogswell Award for Literary Excellence, and it was shortlisted for the Kresh Award for Innovative Poetry and nominated for the Schuster Award as well. A chapbook of the same name, Trauma Head, that she hand-bound as a medical file, was a finalist for the 2018 B.P. Nickel Chapbook Award. Ellie is the founder of Thursday's Writing Collective, a beloved non-profit organization based at Carnegie Community Center, and through its 10 years of activity, she edited and published 9 of its anthologies. In 2012, she co-edited with John Asfour an anthology that centers the voices of residents of that neighborhood, V6A, writing from Vancouver's downtown east side. And that was itself shortlisted for the 2012 City of Vancouver Book Award. Ellie is a frequent collaborator with writers, choreographers, visual artists, and musicians, and has recently published visual poems in the UK's Street Cake magazine. She interviews authors for the Decoction series at Carousel magazine and has poetry forthcoming in Poetry Northwest. Originally from Boston, Ellie lives on the traditional unceded territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam peoples, where she works at Vancouver Manuscript Intensive. Please welcome, everybody, Elee Kraljii Gardiner.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for sharing the space with me. I'm going to hop through several different stages and places of poems, some of them published in books or journals, and some written during the elongated March season called COVID. And I'll start with a poem that's in part due to thinking about composer John Cage, and in part due to Gary Barwin, who I'm collaborating with. Cage delights me because all materials were ingredients for his work, and he appreciated the blank space. Orchestra. My onion, though thin-skinned, protects at the heart, not a heart, but a flower of spice, a seed of tears. Each line follows the curve of the previous and falls across the board off the gentle bend of the calligrapher's pen. Skins pile by my knees, and I cut, prizing and paring nothing but a smaller version of what seemed important. Months pass. Potatoes creep through the kitchen on their eyes. My elbows flutter with work, and slivers in white and yellow flit from my knife like Cooper's moths. The walls furred with Vidalia triangles. Inside a domed home of ends, I might pause, knife held a finger's length above the globe, imagining a conductor spanking a typewriter, rolling a ball and calling it music. If I were to set the knife down and let the onions greenly sprout, would my silence be the better poem? Today, the last of the beautiful but uncharacteristic snow is melting in Vancouver, and it's a topic I can't quit: ice and snow. So this poem reimagines Hieronymus Bosch's painting The Temptation of St. Anthony. It's a busy scene which includes an image of a severed foot, which is basically a reference to a type of poisoning from fungus in rye grain that caused what was called St. Anthony's fire, which is like an unbearable pain from the limb rotting. And the fungus can also cause seizures and muscle contractions and delirium and hallucinations. And it may have played a role in the behavior of the girls persecuted in the Salem witch trials. I grew up half an hour away from Salem, and I always wondered about what happened there, but I've also always been surprised by how often people underestimate teenage girls. So thank you to Long Con magazine for publishing this poem in their December snowy issue. It's called A Mirror of Hieronymus Bosch. Some miles from Salem, I ran shoeless through snow, spilling. Red wine pinked our trail along the Charles River, where my uncle died. The city was stopped, muffled, and snowblind. Adults long evaporated. The city never darkens in a snowstorm, but becomes absent. We filled all the spaces with our suggestions. We were hilarious and unregulated. Somewhere in snow, I lost my red flats. I loved them. We were a bright gang and everything was hysterical. I reached for a girl. She was late teens. I was early. 6 o'clock, ringing from Old North Church, cardinals and crows trapped in white. My feet never felt the cold. She piggybacked me over the Fiedler Bridge. I must have been singing. Our cheeks appled up in the elevator. My toes left feral marks on the carpet. Oh, how they burned when they came to life, and how I danced, hopping foot to foot. I would do anything to make it stop. She threw me on the bed and began to chafe them, and I rolled my eyes back so far I could see pinned above my bed the T-shirt Billy Idol signed for me at Strawberries Records and Tapes. I giggled through yelps, and she warmed my feet with her tongue. At midnight, we made rye toast, tomato soup, gulping mugs of water so we wouldn't have headaches in the morning. Our lips burned dark from kissing. When we woke up, the plows were doing their work, scraping, phones ringing, everything ordinary again. Work of Rain is a poem from Serpentine Loop, and it feels for me like the quintessential winter poem for Vancouver. Work of Rain. The beach whispers, the truth of this city is in the gray. We live within a skirt pleated by the work of rain. Wet hems us, becomes familiar as mother's footsteps. To survive here is to navigate a water-pruned cartography. We arrive at destinations flattened by runoff, tell ourselves it's not so bad, redirect seasonal affective disorder, gloat, think we're not so far from nature, point to forest paths carved by paws and hooves, parks, exhaling whirls of runners, multi-million-dollar structures cantilevered on cliffs, mined with otter slides. In the empty house, a microwave pings, the only company in a cold afternoon. Sleep precludes dreams. We return to bed, joyless, to sheets crushed with damp, sadness, a routine velour. Downtown, corridors rush in plumb lines to foreign markets and conglomerates. A few blocks east, alleys catch footprints. The map forms as we use it, etched by the flow, not of water, but what we do to each other. Long lines circle the church. Tributaries winnow to nothing. Chain link. Behind the dumpster, the surprise of human life and what it can weather. What do I know of loneliness? Gulls gather in the rain. Together they alight, flock, and wait on the diamond for a man and his bread. Come, watch his hand glimmer while he casts a fortune of crumbs. Ask me what I can trust so much as his defiant act of communion. Okay, from snow to water to blood now. Trauma Head, my second book, is a long poem memoir about the year I healed after having a small stroke. The section I'll read is from the middle, where I'm just learning what the diagnosis is. The clot, the block, the body on strike. Neurologist is on the line. A tear in the endothelium, the skin. Eggshell membrane torn away in the artery in the neck. Endothelium, funereal word for specialized tissue, a type of epithelium, the connective fabric lining the interior of this coffin. A tunica intima, the innermost lining, and behind the diagnosis of a rent in the veil is a deeper plot, sleeper cells thick and thicker upon themselves in a viscid nest. The slit in the nightgown was but symptom of culmination, sliding down the brainstem. Mistake this linen for epithalamium, a poem written for a bride en route to the marriage bed, to her own petite mort, if luck is moon-soaked. He speaks intimal flap, rip in the shroud, 3.2 centimeters, same length as the pterodactyl's wingspan on the children's ruler. Palpate bony ladder to skull with dumb fingers, senseless, run, future tense. The doctor and I view film footage of this artery of mine together. Intima. He recognizes parts of me I have never seen myself. Doctor describes a sheaf, a rip, thinnest membrane peeled from wall, water blistering paint, double lumen in the vertebral artery. There is a true and false lumen. Salve epithelium, salute nomenclature. Complicated names are better than none. The only medicine proffered is the tincture of time. They science around, but resolve little. I came across the work of an artist in Japan, Daisuke Tajima, who paints extreme and vertiginous bird's eye views of city buildings. It's called Gokin Chotaikoku from 2015. And one of the cool things about the internet is that I reached out to him and now we like each other's posts on social media. Thank you to the Literary Review of Canada for publishing this poem. It's called Straightened. Straightened. Lately, all these rows of teeth groom weaver's work. Down into the pavement of lines I go. Down I go through chutes. Reflect self in windows. Count how glass prints cloud and what obliterates. Meteorologically, all my feathers are metal. An internal lightning rips the tower tip, and elevators dive to base. Where at the waterfall face, concrete is not so much the surface of a quarry, same as what is under it. Through the pandemic, collaboration and connection have been revitalizing for me, and so too has nature. When I've been unable to write, I've turned to writing prompts off the page by making durational art projects outdoors and checking on them for change. Nothing seems to change during this time of suspension, so this is my scientific practice. The writing responds to the various objects I position in the wild. A book left open on a tree branch, another submerged in a container of waterfall water, and notes written to a person almost 3,000 kilometers away and stuffed in a tree trunk to degrade. I don't know if these objects will give in before I do. This selection I'm going to read from the project Until the Book Faints has lines from the chapbook that I've written with Chris Turnbull called Left. And that is forthcoming from the Ottawa Press, Touch the Donkey. In this section, I write in direct address to several companions I am missing, including myself. And I mention the geochronology choreography of the brilliant Angela Rawlings, who writes about the practice of inscribing circles on the beach by walking in her book, Sound of Mull. Some days the river buzzes with dragonflies, or the underthrum of the stoutest tug, back end dipped in water, dragging a peacock tail of timber to the mill. Swish-shaped parade, these logs, a collection of clocks, formatted with margins made by longer logs. Inside the rectangle, all the M dashes corralled. I could try that with a stanza, couldn't I? How many years can I cram into the cartridge? How I collect my thoughts and stuff them in the trunk, a tree sawn off at hip. This poem is not a trunk-shaped sculpture, but veiny as a rhizome and just about as tensile. Now it is raining down cedar brown, and I know my days will be for sweeping, raking my fingers through my hair and leaving nests for birds to plunder. Other days I dive, beeline down the deer path, track between brambles, where a stranger wrote a poem in yellow, graffiti lasting longer than the verse, no pipeline in purple. I gather syllables on my legs and drag them down the path, pollinating the edges of the redwoods with Rossetti. While I walk, my legs talk to people too far away to touch. The trail an ellipsis of silver circles, puddling my mind, and I leap into the screen of the puddle or the phone, trying to find you. One note is a blank space where you can read yourself. It's there I continue to write the important words simply by listening. Rise from the bed, build a wall out of air, out of absence. Sometimes I pivot so quickly, I am standing still. Everything is changing and not changing. The note I leave you along the path persists in my library. Though it disintegrates or blows away, the note becomes the space, itself a place in perpetua, because I recall it that way. Despite the rain, all I gather is reflection. Upon each glass I pass a hand, drag a finger, switch the theme from fury to congratulatory. I touch each car, leave my print inside the shine of a raindrop or waxed surface. What is proof? Who is it for? That I have been here, that I have begotten something? Around me are cedars older than I know, bouncing their boughs back and forth through centuries, silent music, as we ant by, time-lapsed through greener, longer conscience. Most days, I ask myself, what? And I come up empty. The small work of my own feet through the world becomes impractical communication. I walk a circle tilted on the foreshore and talk through choreography in memory and acoustic instruction, says listen, says reach back and lean to the left, and circle becomes the perfect example of loving the invisible, which has been the only method of happiness lately, believing in a force majeure of coincidence and intention. Listen, estuary. We cannot pretend the body, though we practice at its costume, the way we cloak emotions with a swirl of biochemicals named in patents. Back to the water and the river and a circular practice of walking on elliptical cable from my mind to yours, sometimes with you by my hand. And there are more than one of you, and I call you all with different names. When your knuckles graze mine, the static catch sparks your jump off the path. I want to say something of softness or milk or deep water that will burrow like a cat's purr into your system. We're okay, okay, okay. But the jangled highway of experience is a siren on high, and the burrs are alarms you hear in dangerous vocabulary. What is it to walk with the shadow of your agony alongside us? It trots belonging until we lose it for a moment by the diacritic tree. Turn the corner and pair up again. To melt it off in water, this sticky label of pain, adhesions in the brain's root, obstacles to the placid, and bolt, jump the fence, white rolled eyes going nowhere towards home. Wear a root into the mind, into the mud, into the foot swing, into the hand in pocket. Print a root in the calendar, thrust the text, signal the time. Take the line by the shoulders and lay it down. Bend the back just so. Now degree the knees. What you have made is a circle, a continuous loop to travel each day in your mind. After making the coffee, feeding a cat, clicking the link, calling the number, closing the app, dim the lights, fire them up, change the bulb, return to the book, wash the knife, trade the pen, inscribe the note, fold the paper, open the bark, prize the nook, deliver the mail, and now rest while paper disintegrates. Entropy for miles around, and softly lick the whiskey from your thumb. Thank you so much for your listening and your presence. And I'm so happy to have shared some time with you. I'm really looking forward to hearing the other readers and performers. Thank you.
Tonight's featured performer is RC Weslowski, a poet, performer, and radio host who is the 2021 Zacchaeus Jackson Nice Memorial Award winner and the 2016 Sherry D. Wilson Golden Beret Award winner, a spoken word poet and storyteller, a clown performer, a playwright, workshop facilitator, event MC, and a professional voiceover artist. RC has performed at poetry and spoken word festivals around North America and Europe. He is a two-time World Cup of Poetry Slam finalist, and he co-hosted the radio program Wax Poetic on Co-op Radio for 20 years. The artistic director for Hullabaloo, the BC Youth Spoken Word Festival. RC's most recent collection of poetry, My Soft Response to the Wars, is available now from Right Bloody North Publishing. His other works are published in The Nights Are Twice as Long and Red Reads First. His poetry has appeared in Arc Poetry Magazine, CV2, Quills, and The Lyre, and his one-person show, The Cruelest Phone Book in the World, was part of the 2015 Toronto Fringe Festival. RC is the founder of Mashed Poetics, a night of spoken word and music mashup, as well as the creator of 2 one-person theater shows. Please welcome tonight's featured performer, RC Weslowski.
Hello, friends of Surrey Muse. I'm RC Weslowski, broadcasting today from the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Thank you to Fawzia for inviting me to be a part of this, and to all the other folks who helped put together the Surrey Muse Art Society readings. And I'm thrilled to be part of this wonderful lineup today. So let's just get into it, all right? Everybody has a sound. Everybody. Everybody. Everybody has a sound. Everybody. Everybody. I believe that we are all songs getting inside of each other, and I can feel you now, before me, after me, all around, getting inside of me, and it is beautiful. My bones are filled with the songs of the rhinoceros grief of living, the cries from the bodies filled with disease, dying of neglect, of being taken for granted, the bodies abused by commerce, by power, by war, the bodies that resonate with the disgust of eels, at how callous we've become with our sexuality. These songs fill me, and I can feel my body grow tired and weak as a rag soaked in blood, the blood of all those who've come before and come undone, trying to deny gravity its throne. A battle infused with folly, as we all succumb to the inevitable entropy of unusurpable death, begging for one last breath, one more song. Everybody has a sound. I will not die tonight. Everybody has a sound. I will not die tonight. 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 Sad crowd. Sad, magical, fantastical, elastical, madrigal crowd, climb the moist corduroy vine and bring lightning music for friend. Ring the bells, sanctify your hearts with song. Lightning and music, thunder and trombones will reveal who you are. Do not be an unknowing minstrel. The universe is a symphony conducting itself beyond the intellect into our hearts, asking only that we sing, dance, and make love. Everybody has a sound. Everybody, everybody. Everybody has a sound. Everybody, everybody. Everybody has a sound. Everybody has a sound. Everybody aching to be witnessed, listened to, and believed. Every poem aching to be witnessed, listened to, and believed. Great in theory. Everybody should be heard. Great in theory. Reality. Fight, clench, fist. Ooh, ouch, ouch, ouch. That hurt. Why'd you say that? We make amends. When we say the thing we shouldn't say, we make amends. Everybody has a sound. She said, "Don't you dare call me beautiful," right after I said it. "That's just you being lazy," she said. "That's like saying, I'm no name brand cereal when I'm really Sugar Crisp and Frosted Flakes. Leave beauty to the jerks at People magazine and all the plastic surgeons who subscribe to it. You're a writer. Be creative. Tell me that when you see me, I look like a house on fire in the middle of a blizzard. Or I smell like saffron babble froth. And when I sing, it sounds like shing-tingly castanets. Or when you hold my hand, it's like that feeling the first time anyone ever saw Star Wars. Or when you see me, oh, yes, of course, when I'm sad, tell me that I look like a sunset committing suicide on Venus. And yeah, I know, no one really knows what that looks like, but it doesn't matter if you mean it. So the next time you see me and your heart jumps the curb and you're struggling for words, well, just blather them out in the most beautiful way possible and tell me that you're feeling all zazzle papa wow. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe do what you can. So hi, this is part of my online poetry world tour, an online world tour. Been traveling all over the place by staying here, but getting to go to Australia, the United States, Singapore, various parts of Canada, all in promotion of my book. You can see it back there right next to Henry Doyle's No Shelter, but a little closer. Hi, over here. My Soft Response to the Wars. It's on Right Bloody North Publishing, rightbloodynorth.ca if you want to pick up a copy, or if you wanted to go get one in person in town, you can go to Iron Dog Books on East Hastings Street. I never remember what the cross street is, but I think it's like Penticton, right around there, that area. And or you can go into Chinatown on East Georgia, the Massey Books. They've got a couple of copies there too. So that's where you can pick up the book in person if that feels like something you'd like to do. I wanted to, maybe I'm trying to think of, I had a plan and the plan's just shifting and changing like, life is and life does. And this is a thing. It's just called Follow Your Dreams. It's the new year for, the Gregorian calendar anyway, new year, Chinese New Year's coming up. If you're like not necessarily making resolutions, but feel like, what should I do? I'm in a pandemic. Well, why not follow your dreams? Even if they seem unrealistic. Even if you're having dinner with your father and he looks younger and healthier than he has in years, even if you tell him you're now a vegan and he starts yelling, you grew up on a farm, we slaughtered animals, how can you turn your back on your family? And you ask him if you can just talk about it. You're terrified of food and what it does to your body. You don't want to die from a heart attack like he did, and you don't want to get sick. This calms him down for a while, and he stares at you and says, the only cure for cancer is death. Follow your dreams, even if they seem outlandish, even if you're a soldier taking knee in battle because you've had enough death, and you realize you're carrying the grief of several lifetimes in your back pocket, and so you weep tears the size of mangoes, and someone puts their hand on your shoulder as if to say, you are loved. And you cry harder than you ever have in your lifetime. And your tears fill a lake that you stand on the edge of, but you're too terrified to enter and swim. Follow your dreams, even if they seem unreachable. Even if you're standing on the top of a mountain and from there you can see everything, the entire landscape of creation, the world laid out before you, eternity in high definition. From this place, you have depth perception and you ask yourself, what do you know now that you never knew before? Follow your dreams, even if they seem unavoidable, even if they're a recurring nightmare of a moose coming to kill you, their hooves pounding in your head like war drums. It's your earliest memory and colors your worldview and everything that happens afterwards, until nearly 50 years later when a random drunken Google search reveals that the thing you thought was out to kill you was actually coming to protect you, to take you into the underworld of your subconscious, far away from the rough and ugly country where children are molested. But the moose hid you so well, you forgot who you are. So the lies of the goblin-hearted stuck to you. And their lies made you sick in your soul, and you tried to kill your true self in every way that was offered. But somehow the echo of who you are kept calling, and you reluctantly listened, even if every note of their song felt like a coat hanger being stabbed in your eardrums, because you couldn't believe something so beautiful would want to speak to you. But you listened to their song anyway, because the strength of their truth was more powerful than the lies. And one day a space opened up inside you to begin letting their symphony in. And maybe that crowbar is actually a sunflower. And now you are part moose. And maybe that dragon has become a love letter. And now you are your own medicine. And maybe the thing you feared the most will actually save you. And now you are your own redemption. Maybe the question no longer is, what do you want from me? But what do you have to offer? Follow your dreams. It's like, Tony Robbins. That's the thing Tony Robbins doesn't tell you. To follow your dreams, the dreams that you have in your head, not the ones that other people tell you should do, Speaking of things that other people tell you to do, there's lots. There's always something that other people are telling you to do. And these days it has a lot to do, with COVID and vaccines and who should get them, who shouldn't get them. If I don't want to get them, I got them. I'm a little disappointed in the fact I've got them because, I didn't get sick. The chip that they inserted into me, the GPS on it started breaking after about a week. I couldn't figure out where to go. I was lost all the time, walking around in circles. And I still can't turn the TV on and off with my mind. So that chip, not working. But still, I got it. I think it's the good thing to do. But other people don't. And but there's fighting. There's fighting in families. There's fighting between friends. And it's tense. It's tense out there. And so I thought I would think about it. And I did think about it. I thought I would think. And I did think. And I put it down into words, my thoughts, because I thought other people might be able to get some clarity from all this confusion, because basically it's just like this. It's simply like this. I think it's a good idea to wear a turnip on my head. It keeps me safe from double standards and tearaway leather pants. Plus, I love how wearing a turnip on my head makes me feel sleazy. You think it's a bad idea to wear a turnip on your head. It makes you feel ephemeral. You don't want anyone telling you what to do. Plus, turnip farmers are controlled by Bill Gates's left nipple, the one he feeds turnips to in a secret bunker outside of Sacramento. You probably think I've been brainwashed by a chicken. I think you're a mass murderer who wants my grandmother to explode. You say you don't believe in explosives. I say I don't believe in popping your peas. You say you'll never wear a turnip on your head, but you'll brush your teeth with dishwasher soap and tell everyone else that they should fill their pants with quicksand. But, as an act of good faith, I replace my turnip with your diatribe and a box of dead shoelaces. The next morning, I end up puking cardigans at a bus stop while a gorilla plays paintball with my waffle. I take my motorcade and immolate your humpback. You chalk snort my daisies and spit on my owl. I get drunk on ivermectin tequila and curse the wolves in your pantry. You brandish my hangover with a pap smear and say, why were we even fighting in the first place? I say, I don't know. It doesn't really matter, does it? What really matters is that we hate each other and buy shares in corporate turnip stocks. Someone's got to get rich from all this bullshit. So I hope that clears things up for you. It didn't clear anything up for me, but I like to share it anyway. Who really needs things to not be confusing? Hey, I'm going to share something else. Why not? I've got a few minutes. I got 4.5 minutes, I think. This is a little love poem based on a Mash Poetics prompt. Mash Poetics is a show that I do with Spilius the Ridiculous One, where we take a music album and we ask poets to write new poems based on the songs. And we play all the songs at the show. And this was from the show from the Presidents of the United States of America. My song was Peaches. Millions of reasons to be in love with my peaches and cream. When I see her, I scream Shazam. I'm happy as a river without a dam. Or George Michael when he sang with Wham. Do 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 do. Shatam. Do 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 do. Shatam. You are my blue heron oracle of Saturna. My summer psilocybin soul expander, my tushy tapping bum drumming tit shunting lover, my hold my breath through the tunnel wishmaker. I want to spend every day howling at your decanter, moon gluing your pussy valentine, maz lasting your chloroform regalia. When I see her, I scream Shazam, happy as my email, free from spam, sexy as a rocker in the age of glam. Millions of reasons to be in love with my peaches and cream. Do. Shatam! Trying to hit those high notes, it is tough sometimes. So let us end with this poem. Sorry, I dislike it when other people are doing this, and now I'm doing it, so it's just ridiculous. So this is Soon. It's from the book. Soon I'll be as old as my father was when he died. We were talking the other day over dinner. Well, not really. I was just looking for a way inside this poem. You said you were adopted and more curious about your birth mother than your dad. And you felt guilty because your parents, the ones who raised you, were magnificent people, loving and generous. They took you in, after all, showed you more love than you felt you deserved. But now you are more like a fish on a hook, attached to a bloodline that has begun reeling you in. I said I never knew my father either, and he was around all the time. I probably know him better now dead than when he was alive. Everybody loves everybody, but many don't know how to show it, or worse yet, receive it. Condition upon condition is laid out on a walk of shame until we become bank robbers and blackmailers, attempting to steal what we refused when it was given. I like driving this highway at night, the one he helped to build. It's gotten busier over the years, families interloping on my solitude. But once in a while, if the hour is right, I'll be the only one traveling for miles. Otis Redding on the stereo's tinny little speakers, crying out in the night. Try a little tenderness. Thank you so very much, Fazia, the Surrey Muse Art Society. It's a thrill to be a part of your show once again. Be safe. Again, broadcasting from the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I'm RC Weslowski.
Tonight's open mic opener is J.G.Chayko, who is a Vancouver-based poet, writer, actress, and international arthritis advocate who is working on her first novel. A graduate of the Writers' Studio at Simon Fraser University, she has published personal essays, short stories, and poems in various anthologies and in print and online publications. View some of her work in Emerge 19, Canadian Stories, Boston Literary Magazine, Hastings! Literary Journal, and upcoming in Event Magazine. JG also publishes 2 blogs, The Old Lady in My Bones on Living with Arthritis, and Corkboards and Coffee Houses on Writing. Please welcome tonight's open mic performer opener, J.G.Chayko.
Hello, everyone. My name is J.G.Chayko, and I am thrilled to be here tonight with Surrey Muse. Thank you, Fazia, for the invitation. As a writer, I like to shake things up a bit, put my characters in unexpected situations, and see how they work their way out. Let's see how Susan does, shall we? The story was published a few years back in an anthology called Strange World by Biff Bam Pop Media. The Storage Locker. Sign here, please. The woman's withered finger pointed to the line on the bottom of the contract. Susan picked up the pen and scrawled her name. So that was $150 a month. Do you take credit card? You're under contract. You can pay later. The crone produced a toothless smile. "Here's your key, number 307. Susan stared at the faded numbers on the key tag and felt her stomach turn. "What's the matter? Something I said?" "Nothing. 307 was." "Bad memories cling to us like moths," whispered the old woman. "Yes," Susan agreed, "they do." The storage facility was silent. Susan shuffled her feet at the entrance, put down the box she was carrying, and fidgeted with her keys. The parking lot was empty except for a couple of rusted-out vehicles. Steam evaporated off the damp pavement where the sun's rays hit. She shivered inside her wool coat despite the mild temperature. "Don't be ridiculous, Susan. Just go in." She pushed against the bulky door and tumbled inside when it gave way under her weight. A clammy smell pushed its way up into her nose, and a wet film seeped into her clothes and clung to her skin. She grabbed the collar on her coat and held it tightly between her hands, trying to close the gap against the creeping cold. She didn't like the feel of it. The frigid cement beneath her feet, the steel doors, the maze of hallways. She didn't like the feeling that she was being watched, and when she turned to look behind her, shadows seemed to retreat into the walls. She took a few steps forward. The murky corridor snuffed out the sunlight at her back. A couple of single bulbs swayed from the ceiling and sprayed the corridors with a sallow light. Susan moved down the hallway, her eyes forward, trying to ignore the cobweb-covered doors on the units. A slight breeze glided across her cheek, and she thought she heard the whisper of her name. Muffled noises floated out from a few of the lockers. She accelerated her steps. A loud bang ricocheted down the hallway, and Susan froze, gripping her keys in her hands. Little beads of sweat hopped around on her forehead. A few moments passed before she realized that it was only the door slamming shut behind her. Her breath leaked from her body, and she continued forward on shaking legs. The door to her locker was thick with dust. The number 307 had been traced into the grime. She sorted through her keys. A movement caught her eye at the end of the corridor. "Who's there?" Her voice echoed back as an answer. Susan slid her key into the rusty padlock, but it wouldn't turn. A scraping sound, like a heavy object being dragged over the floor, groaned in the darkness. Something soft and damp brushed against her cheek, as if 2 fingers had caressed her skin. She jammed the key back into the lock. "Come on, come on!" The door squealed when she released it from its restraint. Dust flew out from under the seal and into her lungs. She covered her mouth and backed up, waiting for the air to clear before stepping inside. There was a bulb swaying from the middle of the ceiling. Susan yanked the chain, but it produced no light. She waited for her eyes to adjust in the darkness before pulling her cell phone out and flipping it open. The white light was barely enough to make out the contents. Boxes were covered in dirt, and there were scratches on the walls. The ceiling was stringed with cobwebs that had no occupants. "Susan." The whisper drifted into her ear, and her keys rattled in her hands. She stepped inside, maneuvering her way around the boxes. She held up her cell phone, trying to make out objects in the dimness. A small envelope suspended on the top of a stack of boxes caught her eye, and she reached out for it. A photograph fluttered down to her feet. She bent down and picked it up, holding the edge of the photograph between the tips of her fingers. There was not enough light to pick up details, but she knew the image. Sean. A fuzzy memory of headlights and screeching tires flickered in her head. Her legs collapsed, and she leaned against the wall for support. Footsteps raced down the hall behind her, and the metal door to her unit slammed shut. A shriek burst out of her as the darkness engulfed her body and the photo floated out of her grasp. The light of her cell phone blinked at her feet. She bent to pick it up and felt the ground reach out to her. She grasped the handle of the door and launched it upwards. She stood, listening to her own breathing in silence. What are you expecting to hear? The familiar voice whispered in her ear. Nothing, she squeaked. She seized the envelope, removed a tattered letter, and slipped it into the pocket of her jeans. A shadow moved up the wall and into the corner of the ceiling. The light of her cell phone caught the back of Sean's picture on the floor. She picked it up and flipped it over. The face in the photograph had changed. Sean's face was swollen and bruised, with black semicircles under his eyes. A large gash ran from his forehead down his left cheek to his jaw. His eyes were wide open, staring out at Susan. She kicked the photo to the back wall, stumbled out to the hall, and yanked the door down. The key slipped from her shaking fingers and bounced on the floor. She bent down, retrieved her key, and scampered through the dark corridors. A high-pitched shriek rocketed from out of the darkness and pursued her to the exit. Susan pushed against the doors, but they would not budge. "What are you doing, Susan?" Sean's voice murmured in her ear. Another shriek echoed from the hallway, and Susan dropped to her knees, still pushing against the door. She curled on the floor in the darkness and flipped open her cell phone. The shadows in the corridor moved up and down the walls. She heard loud whispers, but could not make out the words. "Sean? Sean?" she called out into the corridor. "Please help me." "We're coming for you, Susan." The shadows scampered over the walls. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. A low growl answered her. Her sanity slipped away like the light under the door. She reached up and struggled violently with the handle, but the door would not open. She recalled the abandoned vehicles in the parking lot. She heard the voice of the old woman who rented her the locker. Bad memories cling to us like moss. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the letter. "Dear Susan, I'm sorry. This isn't working for me anymore. I love you, but you're making this too difficult for us. I'll be staying with a friend of mine. She's a wonderful woman who is loyal and supportive." The sound of sirens and the screeching brakes of a car bellowed out from the dark corridors. Another scream. Susan recognized it as her own. Her cell phone beeped out an alien sound. She flipped it over and watched a memory play across her screen. She stumbled to the car with Sean in tow. When she opened the driver's side door, Sean tried to intervene, but she shoved him away. It was raining heavily after a long dry spell. The roads were slick with water and oil. Sean clung to the door handle as the car slipped its way up the highway. A pair of headlights advanced from the oncoming lane. Susan swerved the car into the path of the other vehicle. She screamed as the sound of metal and glass went flying out into the night. A figure emerged from out of the darkness. "It's time to face the consequences of your actions." Her cell phone started to beep, indicating a low battery. She frantically held it up towards the darkness, pulling weakly on the door. "We're very patient, Susan. We've got all the time in the world." Sean's silhouette melted away in the gloom. Susan clung to the fading light of her cell phone. She punched in 911, but the concrete building blocked her signal. The letter turned to dust in her hand and drifted into the air. She stood up and screamed into the hallway. The dangling lights began to blink off, one by one, and the shadows slid over the walls towards her. Her cell phone beeped again, and Susan watched the last bar disappear. Paul scratched his name on the yellow paper. The old woman reached out to take the pen from his hands, and her icy touch burned the surface of his skin. "How much for the first month?" "You can pay me later. You're under contract." Sweet dreams, everyone.
This is Kashyana, and my poem is called How About Loving Again? How about loving again? How about listening? How about playing Scrabble, me letting your cheating go along? How about looking into each other's eyes when talking? or making love? How about embodying dreams in sloppy journal entries? How about telling each other about hobbies, like when you found a butterfly stamp and I had the same in my album? How about collecting every letter or word we write across oceans to each other and then carrying them in bags again across oceans, recalling how you had to leave behind your harmonica instead? How about a lemon tart on a whim and a drive just for the heck of it? How about jokes that make no sense at all, still making me smile? How about that one coffee pod you sent inside the crisp folds of an onion paper, the letter you traveled 20 miles to post from your Kerala trip, and the instructions that came along to not tell your mother since you did not want to seem you are in love? You did not want to seem like you are in love. How about the shirt I wore inside out, pottering around my mother's kitchen before she gently nudged me about not showing too much love? How about the way you talk to yourself and then pretend you were really talking to me? How about the edge of the marble top table that chipped in a transition? The little blue corner I kept on my dresser, still keep in memory of our first home. How about your palpitating response when our daughter chose to reveal her word skills with Papa instead of Mama? Because I was at work anyways. How about the guesswork with our son's unspoken expressions, playing charades at grocery stores and watching him patiently enact a demand for bubble gum? How about singing into my tired bones just so we could quarrel about the choice of songs? How about just old-fashioned love where respect was hip and straight-stemmed roses could even be a thought? How about the repetition of similar dialogues, those where you begin and I end, or vice versa, often? How about a married couple falling in love again, held together like all the photo frames you ever installed? How about loving again?